Her first visit to a big post-apocalyptic city. Finally understand what is sore eyes. There are buildings collapsing everywhere, vines covered their bodies, and there are dark missile craters everywhere. Original, the government tried to stop the spread of the zombie pathogen. Keep bombing big cities full of zombies. At that time in these cities, there are many uninfected humans out there, and died in fear and despair. In the old dining room, moss became a tablecloth. It's where old lovers and friends meet and clink glasses. The highway is crowded with wrecked cars. Once carried the hopes of thousands of families. The girl asked why there was no zombie army on the street. My lord said there was none. Turns out, 20 years after the zombie outbreak, most zombies are within a month or two. It's eaten by the fungus inside of it. Become mushroom mummies. But some have been on the loose for 20 years, still undecayed.
What was that?
Old Joe has seen a lot. He knew the noise from a zombie wasn't much of a threat. Old Joe and Tess were smugglers for years. This is the first time they've smuggled a 14-year-old girl. The little girl's name is Ellie. Grew up in quarantine. An unprecedented innate immunity to humans. He was bitten by a zombie 3 weeks ago. The average person would be disembodied within a day. But nothing happened to him. There are signs of fungal infestation on his arms, but not blackened like the others, which means there could be antibodies in his blood. No wonder Fire Silver thinks so much of him, because he may be the greatest treasure in the world. If we can isolate the antibodies from his blood, this zombie apocalypse could be over, except the medical lab is 3,000 kilometers away. They need to get it to the caravan of Fire Silver first. The trio arrived at what used to be a 5-star hotel. This place is already flooded, but there are many small animals living in the water. Wait for them to climb to the top of the hotel and look down. The lower continents are littered with zombies. Tice said, it wasn't like this when they got here a year ago. Tice conjecture, a lot of living people have passed through this place all year, looking for quarantine. He wakes the zombies in the building and gets infected. That's why there are more and more zombies. When the sun shines through, the zombies swarmed and screamed. This is because of the cordyceps bacteria in their bodies. Overcast and damp, light aversion. There's no way out of this road. They took the next route, the museum. I didn't see it until I came to the museum. His wall door was full of gnarled mushrooms. Looks like the cordyceps army is in charge. This means great danger. It's just these climbing roots that get caught in the sun. There's no breath of life left. Maybe there aren't any zombies in there. There's a walk across the hall from the top of the museum. Years ago they decided to take the girl and gamble. As soon as they entered the museum, their feet became very light. Only a flashlight shines. The dark space is very seeping. This place is littered with mummies. Looks like real Jude ate up the host. Died together. One victim's blood is bright red and looks recent. Old Joe and Tess lowered their voices as soon as their faces changed. And I told Ollie to keep quiet too, because that guy's wounds were weird. Normal zombie attacks just bite. It won't cause a tear. There are worse things in this building.
Okay, from this point forward, we are silent.
They're going through the second floor. It took them more than a minute for just 10 meters. Every second is torture. There's mummies and mycorrhiza all over the place. It's hard to tread without making a noise. It's even scarier. The mycorrhiza has become embedded in the building structure of the wall. Teetering. Came to the second floor, just thought safe entry. The ceiling suddenly collapsed. Wait for them to get up. Sure enough, I heard his voice. It's behind a door. The figure gradually stepped out of a seeker. This is a dangerous form of fungal loss. The skull was completely covered with fungus and he lost his vision, but the hearing is excellent. The survivor's attack power is also several times that of a regular zombie. That's when they realized there was a second seeker. They recoiled little by little. Not a sound could be heard against the glass case. Little Joe extended a forefinger to emphasize the absolute silence, but it was Ally's first time facing such a terrible monster. Her heart was beating so fast it couldn't even stop recently. And yet Seeker found them. Old Joe fought him and the second one came at him. Tess took Ollie and started running. But Tess cared too much about Old Joe's safety. He tripped and scattered with Ollie. Old Joe shook off the first one, too. He is very experienced. Immediately knocked down the sculpture and make a loud noise to lose the Seeker. The room was dead again. They came to the stage of hide and seek with the Seeker. Old Joe saw Allie alone and hurried over quietly, trying to get him out of the Seeker's path. To my surprise, he stepped on the glass. Old Joe was shooting at him like crazy. The last shot hit him in the head. Before we finally got rid of the first survivor, Old Joe immediately picked up the rifle from the floor. 2 shots to the head took out the Seeker. When the dust settled, Ellie pulled up her sleeve and he was bitten again. Now, we really need to test him for antibodies. Tess glanced at Old Joe.
Hey, it's
get the fuck out of here.
Tess knew old Joe. He's thinking about killing Ollie, but he didn't want him to think that, even though it's all safe now. But Tess seems to be in a bad mood. He told old Joe to keep an eye on the girl. I spent 2 minutes alone adjusting. Then he reappeared and told them to hurry. Though his foot was twisted, he walked faster than anyone else. Have a safe trip. At last they reached their destination. It's time to finally hand the girl over to the Fireflies. Yet it was dead. Old Joe knew things were bad. Tyce quickly grabbed Ailey into the meeting place. I saw bodies all over the floor. Everyone in the Firefly is dead. Old Joe could tell by the condition of the body. Someone's been bitten by a zombie. Start attacking each other until everyone died in a hail of gunfire. Old Joe gave up all hope of being delivered, but somehow, Tyce, who had always been calm, was unusually irritable. He frantically rummaged for clues about the Firehawk, insisted that Ollie be delivered to them. In this emotional anomaly, Ollie realized what was happening to Tess. It turned out that in the earlier fight, Ollie wasn't the only one who got bitten. And Tess, he tore open his collar. The wound on the neck is covered with mycelium. He's on the verge of becoming a corpse. Tess looked at Ollie's arm. There are no signs of deterioration. Tess's hands began to shake uncontrollably. He knew there was no tomorrow for him, and begged old Joe to carry out his last wish. Keep Ollie safe. He may be the hope of all mankind. If I could end this nightmare, then he would have no regrets even if he lived or died. The zombies on the ground aren't dead yet. Old Joe went up and shot him in the head. The zombie is dead. However, a few thick mycelium protrudes from the ground. That's what cordyceps are capable of. The mycorrhiza that grows underground. It's like a huge web. It links all the zombies in the neighborhood. Deliver the attack command quickly. Of course, old Joe knew something was wrong. He opened the gate and looked. There were zombies as far as I could see. Running out of time, the prince immediately overturned the drum and scattered the rest of his grenades all over the place. Old Joe knew what he was up to. He's already lost someone close to him, but when misfortune again grips the burgundy of the important man, he was still helpless.
Say who you can say.
Old Joe looked at him deeply, and then just pulled the ID away.
No! We're not leaving her! Get off me, you fucker! Not going with you!
The next morning, old Joe made a simple grave by the river. Memorial Tyce. They're not in love. It's just two broken-hearted people getting together in the end. Old Joe was more familiar with violence, though, but it was Tess who kept him mentally protected. He gave him sensible advice. Let his deathly heart warm a little. It was what he lived for. Only now it's gone with his death. The gloom deepened on old Joe's face. He was very cold to Ollie. This little girl, of all people, suffered such neglect. She's still alive and curious and chattering. Tess, before he died, tell old Joe to bring Ollie to his two friends. Many years ago, Tess met two strange people at the radio station. They live in the suburbs around Boston. One of them was named Bill. In the year of the zombie outbreak, the beefy man had not picked up by the Federal Disaster Relief Agency. When the dust settles, he'll be the only human in the area. Bill is very hands-on. He made a great effort to transform his village, set up traps to monitor the high-voltage fence, carrying a gun and scrounging for supplies. A man's kingdom was established. A few years later, he takes in a stray surviving human named Frank and lived with him. And then Tess met. When they got to know each other, he brought old Joe to dinner. We trade them medicine, ammunition, and supplies. Only old Joe hadn't seen them in over a year. When he brought Ollie to Bill's village, I found it quiet here, too. Old Joe used a code to get into Bill's village gate and walked straight into Bill's house. By Bill's extreme defense, there's no way you won't show up. Sure enough, they found a letter on the table. That was Bill's. It turned out Frank had a terminal illness. There are no medical conditions in the end times. He didn't want to suffer anymore and decided to kill himself. And old Bill didn't want to be alone and take the poison with Frank. Old Joe was more silent than ever. He doesn't have many friends. And now we've lost two more. His connection with the world was breaking down. Perhaps this is the bleak fate of the late. Bill left all his supplies to old Joe. Lots of guns, ammo, canned food, medicine, and an old car. Next, old Joe had to take Ollie west with him. When he put Ollie's seatbelt on, maybe he doesn't even realize it. He's already the most important person to him.